It's time to begin Community Forum for this evening. I'm Ray Aiden, I'll be the moderator tonight. A couple things to be reminded of. I will try to be looking around and recognize you before you speak so that we have that on the records, but also to keep some order. Don't forget to turn on your microphone. There's a little orange dot-covered button. When you press down on it, you should see a green light, and that means you're on. Don't forget to state your name whenever you're beginning either conversation or an observation or a report. And lastly, if you keep your mouth pretty close to the microphone, that'll help with spreading it out. So, meeting to order. I'd like to start on the left-hand side and have you announce the neighborhood that you're from and your name, and that'll be recorded in the records for determining the quorum and the roll call for the neighborhood.
Upper Rattlesnake neighborhood, Missoula's best neighborhood. Reporting for Doug Grimm reporting.
Katie Sullivan, University District.
Ron Larson, Grant Creek.
Tim Karst, Moose Kangawi.
Chris Chitty, Franklin to the Fort.
Kathleen Gamar, Rose Park.
Pamela Frazier, Heart of Missoula.
Jeff Stevens, South 39th Street Neighborhood Council.
Dave Westfall, Lewis and Clark.
Ray Aiden, Farviews, Petty Canyon.
Nick Shantz, River Road. Anthony Joe, Captain John Mullen.
Jim Whitney, Riverfront.
Bob Martin, Southgate Triangle. Jack Walton, Miller Creek.
Okay, Karen, do we have a quorum? I believe we do.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
And John Wilkins, City Council.
Should have done that before. Okay, so the first action item on the agenda tonight is the adoption of the agenda. Does anybody have any suggested changes? If not, then we will adopt it just as accepted. All right. Next is approval of the minutes from the last meeting. I hope you've all had a chance to look at them. We have a motion.
Moved Bob Martin, Southgate Triangle, moved to approval minutes.
Need a second.
Jack Walton, Miller Creek, second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, then all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes. So, next on the agenda is public comment on items that are not on the agenda. If there's anybody here who'd like to make comment, please keep it to about 3 minutes.
I have a request from someone in the Rattlesnake area. She asked me to please ask how we work those parking meters. I told her, stop, have money, read the directions, and do what you said, or just walk.
Any other public comment? Was not. No, it's not supposed to be there.
I do have a comment on that. I live in Heart of Missoula, so I'm downtown a lot, and especially in the summer, we have people from all kinds of different countries and not English speakers, and they come in to use those parking meters, and they are just totally befuddled. And, you know, used to be so much nicer when you just had to put a quarter in the slot, right? So they are very complicated, and especially for tourism in Missoula, that's something to be considered.
Anyone or public comment? Okay, then I'd like to move on to the presentations, which the first one is Laval. Okay, do you want to introduce yourself? And we know the subject, I think.
Sure, thank you. I'm just going to, told you that. Okay, there's a few other people that didn't get that. Greetings, my name is Laval Means, and I'm the Planning Services Manager for Development Services for the City of Missoula. And I'm here today to update you and give you an overview of a project that we're working on in our section. It's called the Design Excellence Project. And it's about creating some new architectural design guidelines and standards for our primary commercial corridors in the downtown. It's a project that we've started about early this spring, 2017, and it's going to take quite a while, so we're about halfway through the project. And we are working with a consultant called Winter & Company as they come to us with a lot of experience in addressing this type of set of design standards. They've worked in many, many other communities around the country. So they've been helping us with this project. And today I just want to bring it further to your attention. I think you might have seen emails from the Weekly Digest announcing different things along the way. But I wanted to let you know a little bit more about it. There's still future opportunities for you to weigh in as we go through. So today I was going to give you some background about what the project is, and then talk about some of the key objectives and principles that we've established to set up the design standards as we go forward, and what kind of strategies we've developed so far that is a step in this process, and then tell you what our next steps will be. So the reasons why we are looking into the idea of developing deeper, greater design standards for our commercial corridors and the downtown is in part because we want to celebrate and recognize, what is unique about Missoula and our character, and then determine ways that we can align building development to reflect that character. We know that there are some successes in how architecture and the buildings are developed around the community, and then there have been some that have caused us some consternation, and so we find some issues with it. And so we wanted to be able to address some of those concerns while also recognizing some of the good things about what our community looks like. So as I mentioned, we started this project early spring of 2017. It's a two-phase project. We have wrapped up the first phase, and we are about to start into the second phase. That first phase was really about gathering from the community ideas and issues that you may have regarding the built environment, the buildings. This is about the building development. And then our consultant has also looked at our existing codes that we already have. And then we've gathered feedback from the community in the form of one open workshop that we had and an open house just recently. And with that, he pulled together a compiled summary strategy report that helps to set us up with the recommendations for how we go forward to actually develop some zoning tools and some incentives in the next phase. So that's why I say we're about a little over halfway through this process. Early on in this project, we had community meeting, and we asked people to give us a one word in terms of what best describes Missoula and our character of Missoula. And this is a word cloud that shows the frequency of certain words that were used in that process. And you can see that a lot of the words really tie back to our environment, that we feel that what is a strong piece of our character and our identity is the setting, the mountains, the valley, the river, and then there's also the history and our desire to be unique, eclectic, diverse. Those are the kinds of words that we would often hear. So out of the strategy report that we developed, there is, the consultant took all of that information and summarized it, as I mentioned, into this report. You can find this information, this particular report, on our website, and I have the link in that handout that I just passed out to you. It's a fairly lengthy report. I have it here, but it also has an executive summary at the front end of it and a reader's guide for you to help navigate the front end. There is an appendix with some suggestions on how we can start to work on some potential tools here. So there's kind of two parts to it as well that you can look at. Then what we did with this information is we held an open house in October. We also came back to the council and got some feedback from them, and then developed kind of a supplement that suggests some shifts that we needed to do based on what we heard. Now, what you have before you with the mapping and tables, that's the summary of the whole big picture. And so if you look online, you want to look at the strategy report plus the supplement, because that gives you the latest thinking on what the strategies are. So going into what's inside of that report for a minute, I just wanted to say, out of all of the information that we gathered, the consultant compiled a set of principles that we want to use to help guide what we develop as these future standards or guidelines occur. And they range, there's 9 different principles that he put out there and established for us. And they range from talking about design for Missoula, that being, we want to be not any place USA. We know that we have this unique setting and a unique characteristic that through the architecture we want to try to capitalize on. And we also heard it's really important to recognize our diversity. As we develop over decades, there's a lot of variety in what you're looking at around Missoula. Other principles that are important is tying to the nature again and thinking about our traditions and our history and how that plays out as important roles in our character. A key one here also is to think about the benefits of economic benefits when you think about place and place making when it comes to tying into your character, and the reason why people like to live here and come here is a lot about what we value as a place and that look of the place. So that has, I think, some economic value to be exploring as a principle. And then the other key ones here having to do with plans that we already have in place and being respectful of those. So what we've done is, the emphasis here, as I mentioned, is on building development on our commercial corridors in downtown. And we have developed a set of vision statements for the commercial corridors. I'm going to go over those first, and then I'll go over the downtown. A couple of the key things that are important about the commercial corridors are that we really want to think about it in terms of how the corridors may transform or be enhanced over time. So it's not about how do we fit in with the existing look of the buildings right now, but how we might see them changing the feel of the streets, the corridors, the buildings' relationship to those over time. An emphasis there is about, a lot of times, about the walkability and that relationship of moving along your sidewalks to the building streetscapes and the street front edges. So with the vision concepts in mind, what the consultant did is what we've got is a set of, he grouped the key major corridors into 5 different typologies. And these are corridors that are where we are primarily commercially zoned also. So the emphasis here is the fact that there's a lot of commercial zoning on those corridors. And they range, these typologies, these groupings range from the first typology, number 1, which is a purple, and you see it on Brook Street and a portion of Russell, as being a place where we'd envision or see it transforming to a highly pedestrian emphasized corridor, to the typology number 5, which is actually along Reserve Street and a little bit west on West Broadway, that has to do with more of an auto-centric, knowing that there is going to be traffic that needs to move along here at higher speeds, and where you might think more about the softening of the look of the buildings along that street, and more landscaping and buffering become more of an issue there than they do on, say, that first typology where it's a highly pedestrian-focused type of corridor. So there's a range and a spectrum of different types of experiences and uses as you go from typology 1 to typology 5. Then what we've also done by taking those principles and what we heard from the community and broken the way we could go forward and relate to potential design standards and guidelines into different types of design considerations. And that's what you see in this table as you start to look down the rows. So a design consideration that translates to architectural types of standards is something like pedestrian activity levels, or the parking location, or the building types themselves, heights as they relate to the street edge. There's a list of those going down the table. And what we're proposing here and suggesting is that they will vary as you go through the different typologies, so that in one situation, you're talking about, again, that very high-level pedestrian activity that you want to develop the design tools for, and that by the time you get to typology 5, it's more of a moderate level. So it's on a spectrum. Now, an example of how that works, is I just blew up a portion of it, is to just think about parking location. In our current code, we treat commercial developments all pretty similarly, or at least the smaller ones, and requiring them to put all their parking to the back. And it's the same way no matter where you are. And the idea with this is maybe we want to be more context sensitive. Really think about what's parking location depending on these different typologies. So yes, it's very important to put the parking to the rear in that first typology, side into the rear in the second and the third, a little more flexible as you go along. And when you get to the 5th, be more flexible again, knowing that it's an area that has a higher speed along it, that kind of thing. But treat it with improved buffering and landscaping in that experience. So these are some of the ways that we're looking at different design considerations. Another thing that's going to be important as we develop these zoning tools is to think about concentrations of uses on these corridors at particular intersections. That's what we refer to as nodes. And you see the mapping of the potential nodes on that map that I passed out to you. Transitions are also an important feature. That's where we really want to think of how you go from a special design set of standards on our corridors to those sensitive properties, to the neighborhoods behind it, to the residential, to varying uses. So we have to consider transition in our zoning tools that we're going to be looking at. Moving on into the downtown, it's the same kind of idea. We developed a vision, some vision statements. Here it becomes much more important to talk about how you maintain and enhance the character that there is and respect the historic character. It's all within historic districts. And also give recognition to the downtown master plan that's already in place. So we've looked at the study area for the downtown and have the same idea, broken it down into 5 different context areas. And they range in treatment from the inner core, where you're going to see, and that's the brightest yellow right in the downtown here, a highly engaged street, higher pedestrian activity, and that's going to play out in what we do with standards about the building placements and window placements, that type of ideas. And then it ranges in variation down to gateways, which are, again, kind of at the edges over here to the west of Orange Street, and then gateway heading to the east along East Broadway. And then we have a couple areas that we call north, downtown north, and those are places there we see more of a fabric of smaller residential intermixed with smaller commercial kinds of areas and more street trees and, a different feeling that we're trying to capture. Again, here we break it up with different design considerations as you go down, and then see them as being treated on a spectrum from very high street level activity to moderate as you move through these different suggestions and street edge treatments, that kind of thing. So I've used the words design standards and design guidelines a little bit here, and I just wanted to point out for you what we mean by that. In our design development world, the design standards are going to be things that will be very more specific. They're going to be measurable. They help to shape the form of a building. We have some of these already in our commercial development standards. And they're going to be easy to just administer right across the counter. Design guidelines are going to be the things that actually have more of the qualitative calls. They're the features that you add to that form. And we want to treat them with more flexibility and give opportunities to say the intent of what we're trying to do with the design guideline, and then have the flexibility for people to be able to make the case for where we think we're meeting that intent. So when you do that, you also need a stronger avenue for making that case to a design review board, say. So we have to work on those processes and what that language will look like. What out of all of that we're proposing is really a blend of both of those things. So there are some baseline standards that are going to be very important, and they may vary as you look through these different typologies I was just describing. And then there are guidelines that will be incorporated as well, and that's where the flexibility will really come into play. What we're proposing here, just to summarize, is that we would be looking at, on those corridors that I've been identifying in the downtown, applying some form of design standards and guidelines. It will be done through the aspect of creating design overlays in our zoning code. And some things that we care about, and the consultant heard a lot about in this early sort of vetting process, may be needed to be applied to all commercial uses and all commercial zones. And so he's also saying with his point number 3 here, that there might be some there are some standards that we want to tackle through the Title 20 citywide. An example of that is how we look at buildings that get designed as a sign. That's something that the council has been very concerned about, and they'd like us to look at that from a citywide perspective. And so our consultant will be able to help us with some of the language that we would propose, and that particular thing would come through as a Title 20, our zoning code amendment applicable throughout the city. The rest of what I'm talking about will be things that really just apply to our corridors and our downtown. I've talked about the qualitative call of design guidelines versus design standards and needing these strong intent statements. We also want to look at what kind of incentives we could be creating in our code so that this is something that makes using these design standards a little more favorable. And then we think that there will be the idea of making it applicable varying depending on how big a project is being proposed. So for smaller projects, you might have fewer design requirements applicable than for bigger ones. So that is kind of a snapshot of our first phase. What we heard from comments on what we have so far and out of the strategy report is people were feeling that we are on the right track. They appreciate the fact that we are creating this flexibility between some standards for the basics and then the flexibility through the guidelines. They've told us to be very careful about not adding more time or extensive amount of time to processes, because that does cost money. And then be careful and cognizant of costs as we are looking at the approaches that we're going forward here, and we will be able to do that with some guidance from some the consultants that we have. We have more work to do with regards to the processes that we'll be setting up, and we're really at a place where we need to get into the details and actually start drafting some zoning language, which is what the second phase will be. So here's where we are with the next steps. Developing the code language that we would be proposing. Bringing that out to the community early next year for some feedback. Revising the zoning language, what I'm calling the tools here. And then taking that out to notification. These will become map amendments. Planning board hearings and city council hearings. So we have a lot of work still to do. Can't tell you what the language is going to look like yet, but we're trying to be pretty methodical about the process. And with that, I will just, welcome you to look at the document. Ask me if you've got any questions. The email right there will come to me and a few others in our section. And you see if you have any questions. Thank you.
Yes, how do you define village character?
Pardon me? Which
How
character?
do you define village character?
Well, I think that's more of the local character, the smaller scale character.
Lavelle, I like your use of the Escher painting in one of your, I think that's what you're
I'll
up
pass that
against. Oh, there we go, Doug.
Doug Grimm. I lived in New York City as soon as I graduated from college. For 3 years, I really learned a lot because I was told we had to build a dark room inside the office space that we were using. So I was most surprised when they brought in not 2x4s, but long chunks of sheet metal that had the shape of 2x4s, and I had no idea how to put a little room together. And I said, well, what's wrong with 2x4s and nails? They said, you can't use that in New York. Every building in New York City has to be fireproof. The only thing that the furniture can be made of wood and cloth, but that's it. So that was a big shock. Secondly, I was surprised that when I landed in New York, I was on 8th Street, and I needed to go up to 38th Street. And I thought, well, that's really easy. I just have to go 30 blocks. And when you're in Missoula and you ask for directions to a certain spot, you have to get out a map and figure out, can I walk it or do I have to get a taxi or a bus? And I thought, well, why would the city have streets going east and west, and the big long ones were called avenues, starting, over by the UN building with 1st or 2nd and going across to 9th or 10th and 11th. And it was so easy to figure out how to get around town, except down in the southern part, which is called Greenwich Village. And I understand that the early city fathers found out that and realized that New York might be a real center, a hub for the rest of the country. And when you try to get around Beaver Street and Wall Street and all the little, well, it's just sort of like you dropped some worms in a plate and then picked them up, and they had spaghetti sauce on them, and that was sort of the street map. And they thought, how are we going to be able to get commerce from down here up there to the top part of the island someday when the city is 200 years older than it is now? And someone said, I think the most sensible way is we have all this vacant land up here north of what we now call Greenwich Village, and they laid out a grid and dropped it on the land. And they said, okay, whoever owns this pasture here, you see those lines on the map? If you decide to develop that, you have to put streets in where those lines are. And so every subdivision ended up with all the streets connecting to each other. Now, I live up the Rattlesnake, where I have Dickinson Street coming down toward my house, and Sycamore coming up this way. And the surveyor decided to not make my Sycamore Street end up and abut the Sycamore Street in the next subdivision.
Doug, we're moving into taking up somebody else's time now, the next speaker, so can you wrap it up, please?
Well, I just wish that someday someone could lay a grid over this part of the valley, halfway to Hamilton and down to Frenchtown, and tell people, when you subdivide this, you have to have the streets in these areas, in case we really want to someday become the hub of western Montana.
Okay. Are there case studies of this process, have gone through this process in cities similar to Missoula around the country?
Well, we've been working with Winter and Company, and they've worked with many, many other communities. So you could go to Winter and Company and look at their website for the different types of projects they've gone through. They came to us about a year and a half ago also, and just doing some brainstorming on how we tackle some of these issues. And at that time, they had talked about, several other communities that they had worked in. I can't bring them to mind right now. But they've, the idea of standards coupled with guidelines is something that they've used before.
And has anybody talked to folks in those, after having gone through this design review process and implemented these tools, have people talked to those zoning boards?
Well, during the consultant search phase, I contacted other communities, but I haven't gone back to talk to boards particularly yet. It's something I could look at.
Oh, I have a question. Is it on? During this process, do you consider the density of the population that has been invited into downtown, how that affects the people who are already downtown and traffic problems and things like that? Or is this just about basic design?
It's about building design.
Okay, so no one is really addressing population density and traffic and things like that?
Not in this process. We're not talking about traffic flow.
Well, maybe you can tell me who does address that then.
Well, there's a transportation section, and they just developed a long-range transportation
Because with all the new
plan.
developments we have in downtown, it's drastic. I mean, our quaint little downtown has disappeared. And I want to know, who do I talk to about that?
There's also been, there is interest in updating the downtown master plan as well. So I think in that process, that's when you might be going into land use and visioning, and it's comprehensive. So, you drill down a little closer. Now, parking, I think, would be a conversation with the parking commission.
Ron Larson, Grant Creek. I was wondering, does this include signage requirements? And the reason I ask is, we have a signing guidelines now, I suppose, or codes, but I've seen some that are starting to show up that look more like something you'd see in maybe Las Vegas or something. They're real huge and bright. They just don't complement the existing sign. So that's the reason I was asking.
I'm not sure. I think more on the signage would be like placement of signage related to building, and that one doesn't overpower the other. The sign doesn't overpower the building. And then that reference to building as a sign, when the building itself becomes the sign, is what we've been focusing on.
And we do have a sign review board that they always need more people on, so if you don't like them signs, volunteer.
Thank you, Lavelle. Thank you very much. All right. Karen?
I would just like to note for the record that Catherine Auger has joined us from the Lower Rattlesnake.
Okay. Very good, Kevin. All right. So the next presentation was from, maybe I'll let you all, I assume it's the same people that are on my list here, Terry Egan and, okay.
And Patty Colcup has also joined me.
Okay. And a dementia-friendly community.
Yes. So Patty and I are part of a volunteer citizen group, the Missoula Coalition on Aging and Disability, the Education Committee, and we have been working for the, particularly Patty and I ourselves have been working for the past 2.5 years on a statewide plan for dementia, and the state plan is now available. And we are just starting to work into the phase of how do we implement our state plan for dementia. We decided during this process that we were already doing things along this line, and we needed to go ahead and move through that. And I'm trying to see how to, is it this one? Those arrows. Okay, I was using those arrows up there. Okay, thank you. So what we have done as a local group in our communities, we had several people that were serving on this statewide dementia plan, and realizing Missoula and other communities are also starting to work on raising awareness. And so these are the goals for our local committee here, is raising awareness of Alzheimer's disease and related dementias, to provide needed information at the point of diagnosis and before, and promote a perspective change from limitations-based cognitive decline diagnosis to strength-based perspective. Not, oh, this person has dementia and they can no longer do this and this and this, but saying this person is in early stages of dementia and they can still be an active part of the community, and they can still run, the marathons if they like to do that, and what can they do? And with some small supports in the community, they can go out and order at a restaurant, do their banking and things like that with some community-friendly activities. And so we like to talk a little bit about what is dementia, just kind of as an overview. Dementia is like the umbrella. We hear a lot about Alzheimer's disease. Most of the dementia, about 85%, is Alzheimer's. But a lot of people will say, oh, my mom, the doctor didn't say she has Alzheimer's, she has dementia. Well, most likely it is Alzheimer's, but there are some other kinds of dementias, including vascular, frontal temporal, mixed dementias, traumatic brain injury. A lot of people that have had the TBIs are more prone to dementias. There's Parkinson's disease dementia, Lewy body dementia, and many others. And so that dementia is kind of that overall umbrella. So it's not a specific disease, but rather a range of symptoms. They all have kind of that same trajectory. Whether it's Alzheimer's or vascular or Lewy body, it's a dementia. It has the same disease progression. And by the numbers here in Montana, 20,000 people right now in the state of Montana over the age of 65 is what we have here. It's the 6th leading cause of death in Montana. $139 million in Medicaid costs in the last year, and in 2017 is estimated a 41% this year, and then an estimated 41.8% increase in the years of 2017 to 2025. The biggest factor for getting dementia is older age, And so as our population ages, we will have more people with dementia just because we have more adults over 65, more adults over 75, more adults over 85, because we are all living longer. There are more women that have dementia because women live longer than men, so there are more 85-year-old women than there are 85-year-old men. This is something that impacts caregivers. We have 49,000 caregivers here in Montana. The hours of unpaid care is 56 million, and it's about $33 million in caregiver health care costs that they're helping to save or utilize. So here in Missoula County, we can go down and say, so what do we have in Missoula County? We have about 12,457 people 65 and older, and we have about 1,400 of those individuals do have Alzheimer's disease or related dementia. 85 and older, we have over 1,700 Missoulians, 85 and older, and about 575 of those have dementia. And 65 and older with Alzheimer's disease or related dementias is that, again, that 1,385. About 200 of those live alone, and so that is a big challenge for our community, and also helping to keep those people to be able to live in their homes or where they choose to live for as long as they can. So a dementia-friendly community is a community that's informed, safe, and respectful of individuals with dementia and their families. It provides supportive options and fosters quality of life. That's strength-based. It's also a community in which people with dementia are empowered to have high goals, hopes, and confidence, knowing that they can contribute and participate in activities that are meaningful to them and others. This is just a very short video that I was going to play for you about what a dementia-friendly community looks like, so you can see that.
If you saw someone living with dementia, would you recognize the signs? Would you be uncomfortable? Would you avoid them? Would you be frustrated? Would you do nothing? Or would you be a friend? Would you engage them and empower them to get through their day? Would you welcome the opportunity to help them feel like a part of your community? Would you take even the smallest step to make their world less frightening or confusing? Every single one of us has a unique part to play in the lives of people living with dementia in our community. Become a dementia friend today and build communities where all people can live, age, and thrive.
Hey, Mr. Fredrickson, it's Tuesday. Aren't you going to the store?
Yeah.
Come on, I'll walk with you.
Find out more at dementiafriendsusa.org.
So what our group is doing, we have had a couple meetings recently and some other training, and we are working with Dementia Friendly America to see how Missoula can become a dementia-friendly community, which also is an age-friendly community, because a lot of the same kind of things that we're looking for to make our community age-friendly are then also dementia-friendly. They need a little bit more help or support. This is a diagram that we have. What we're starting to do now is look at different sectors, and I'm going to have Patty hand these out. We're also working closely with the Minnesota Act on Alzheimer's coalitions. And what we're trying to do is look at different sectors, and city, county governments are one of those sectors that we're trying to involve in conversations in how do we make Missoula a dementia-friendly community. We're also looking at the business sector. If someone wants to eat at a restaurant downtown and they're having some challenges, there's some things that you can have a little card that says, you know, my partner, my father, whoever I'm with, has dementia. Please let them, please be respectful if they order dessert first or what, however they order. We need to respect, those wishes. We're also trying to do some training for the EMTs and first responders. So when you get there and it's a situation where someone is agitated or upset, if they have dementia, there's very specific ways to handle or work with those people instead of, other ways that are less constructive and will be make the situation possibly deteriorate further. So there are some real important things that we can do working with those first responders. We also want to work with transportation, housing. We've had some conversations already with the faith community, talking about some things that they can do in the church communities here in town. And also we've talked with the Chamber of Commerce about starting to have some conversations with Chamber of Businesses. There are some stickers and decals that people can put on windows to say, we're a dementia-friendly business and some things like that. So there are some opportunities for us to look at what our community wants to do. And what we wanted to do today was just kind of talk to the neighborhood councils and tell you that these are the kind of things we're looking at doing. We want to engage different parts of our community, and yet we are a volunteer group, and so we're kind of slowly going to one group at a time, trying to figure out how we can best let people know and be aware of we have resources in our community. Two of the largest barriers we have to dementia is that primary care providers are reluctant to diagnose it because it's hard to diagnose, or it can be diagnosed, but it's a disease that there is no cure, and it's a disease that is a progressive disease, and so they don't like to give people bad news. There's nothing, there's no medication, there's no, something here, you will be better, we can have this operation, we can do these kinds of things. So there is no cure for dementia, and so it's one of those things that people are very reluctant, primary care providers are particularly reluctant to kind of give that diagnosis to families. So we do have some people that are working with our group that are in early stages of dementia, and they really want people to know that life doesn't end when dementia begins, and they want to continue being out in the community. They want to continue to be a part of the community and contribute, but sometimes they need a little bit of extra help. We have some support groups in our community for people with dementia. We have an Alzheimer's cafe, or it's called a Living Well with Dementia group, where some people with dementia can come, they can visit with one another, and in kind of a safe, comfortable environment. We also have some support groups for caregivers. As the disease progresses, caregivers need more help and support, and so we have some support groups. And mostly what we're trying to do is just raise awareness that the kind of gatekeeper right now is the Missoula Aging Services. We say if you have someone that needs some resources, they can contact Missoula Aging Services. They'll get them in contact with us. There's some people that are willing to talk and visit one-on-one with caregivers or with individuals living with the dementia, and talk with them about options for them and their future. So working together, we think that we can make Missoula a dementia-friendly community. We can, some things that you might be able to do would be to reach out to other folks in your professional area or in your neighborhoods. Just general suggestions that you might have for spreading the word. And if anyone would like to be involved, or if you need more information, because what we find is in every group we come and talk to like this, there's at least someone in the room who knows someone who's a caregiver for someone with dementia, who's had or has had a family member that has been diagnosed or has passed away from dementia. So we do have some other materials if anyone is interested in them. I bought around-the-clock Alzheimer's support information phone number, and then there's also like 10 ways to help a family living with Alzheimer's or dementia. Very simple things that we can do in neighborhoods. if we know, like our video showed, that Mr. Smith usually goes to the grocery store on Tuesday and he's out there looking a little confused, we can offer our support or our help and, become that dementia friend. And there's also 10 warning signs of Alzheimer's disease. And I say often you'll see Alzheimer's disease because that is the most frequent one, but all those dementias are very similar progression. So questions or comments that you have? John, oh, sorry.
So I have a comment, because my family went through Alzheimer's with my father-in-law, and there wasn't much of a support group out there then, and then, of course, my mother-in-law was, she was going to take care of him, hell or high water, which he did, and he passed away, but he was from a family of 12. And in that family of 12, 8 of them had Alzheimer's. So we have come to the conclusion that it is hereditary with some families. There is a gene I think they can now get there, they can find that might help knowing what you might get it or whatever. There was another one in my neighborhood that had Alzheimer's, and in the neighborhood, what you could notice is this lady, and she wasn't that old, she wasn't in there, I think she was just probably hitting 60, but you'd find her standing on the corner, looking around, not knowing where she was at, and we'd lead her back to her house. So as a neighborhood, I mean, you need to look for those things and be ready to help out, because they do need help.
Yeah.
So it was my father-in-law. If you didn't know him, you wouldn't have known there was anything wrong with him, because he always, when you met him, he always said, "Hey, buddy, how are ya?" And people just would not realize that there was something wrong. But
what we've learned from people with Alzheimer's disease is they learn very good coping skills. And if you speak first and say, "Hi, how you doing, buddy?" I don't have to remember your name. I can say that. And they're saying that the early onset Alzheimer's, when it starts before 65, tends to be the more hereditary type. If I'm looking at Patty, because she's more the medical person than I am, seems to be the hereditary type. If you have a lot of people in your family that are all over 85 and getting it, it's more of an age thing versus a hereditary thing.
Yeah, I'd like to say just kind of,
you need to get up and be on the mic.
Mike.
Okay. So can you hear me?
Yes.
Alrighty. I'd like to go a little bit tangential to this, and as Terry did say, yeah, there isn't a cure for Alzheimer's, but research continues on, and one of the things that people are looking at are perhaps lifestyle changes that can be made that maybe can postpone or prolong the onset of symptoms. You've possibly heard that many times our brains are starting to be affected earlier, but 10 to 15 years before people show symptoms. So the idea with a dementia-friendly community is to taking a look at some of those lifestyle changes. One, of course, is a healthy diet. What's good for the heart is good for the brain. But then there is the social engagement. So rather than buying into the stigma and isolating yourself at home, we've got to stay involved. And people do have things to contribute. So it's not just us doing something for them. Then there's intellectual engagement and physical activity. Physical activity goes with also an age-friendly, where there's good walking ability, there are activities that they can do. And then sleep also is taking a look at that. So it's correlational research that says when we study these people who have done this, they're not showing the symptoms earlier. A dementia-friendly community allows people to remain integrated in the community and hopefully stave off the worsening of conditions and keep people out of residential facilities for a longer period of time, increase quality of life, and save money. So.
Doug?
Doug Grimm. I've heard that by talking to a person, you can't tell if they have Alzheimer's. Has that opinion changed?
It depends. It depends. As Terry was saying, people can sometimes have coping skills, say, "Hi, buddy," and not have to remember the name. It depends on the stage of the illness. It's a progressive continuum. But by looking at a person, sometimes you can. Again, it depends on the stage, though.
Well, I'll tell you what happened to me. I was sitting in my yard, and a lady came walking down the street, and she talked to the man and wife that were standing in their front yard for maybe 10 minutes, and then she came over to me, and I was sitting in a chair reading the paper out in the sun, and she said, "Who is the lady who has Alzheimer's?" They had gone back in the house, and I looked around and I said, "I don't know anyone who has Alzheimer's around here." And she said, "Oh, yes, the lady in that house there has Alzheimer's." I said, "Well, how do you know?" And she said, "I work in a home where everyone has Alzheimer's." And she said, "Just by talking to her, I could immediately tell that she has Alzheimer's." Well, she left. And so I went over to my neighbors, knocked on the door, and I said, "Does your wife has Alzheimer's?" "Oh, no, 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 no." Well, I think 4 years, 5 years have gone by now, and they have gotten to a point where for the last year I go out and get my mail and my newspaper, and I walk across their lawn and take it in and set it inside the front door. And for about 3 days I didn't notice her sitting in her chair looking out the front window. So I said, "Phil, where's your wife?" "Well, 3 weeks ago this happened," and he said, "Oh, she died of Alzheimer's." But yet they denied it a few years ago, but this woman walking by could say instantly, she has Alzheimer's. And I thought, is there someone in town that I could walk up to, or all of us old people could walk up to and talk to for 5 minutes and just see how we're doing?
Don't know how much time we have here, but I'll tell you, there's stigma around it, and my own experience with my parents. My mother had it. Dad did not disclose it because he felt he was betraying. We want to try to bust that stigma so that people are comfortable disclosing it.
Mm-hmm. And the new data says about as many as half of the people with Alzheimer's or some kind of dementia have not been diagnosed. You know, that their family and their physician may have a very good idea of it, but again, that stigma, they don't want to be diagnosed, they don't want it on the record, and that less than half of the diagnosed people don't know they have the disease. So the doctor says, you know, writes in my chart, I have this, but again, is that reluctance to share. And we're saying part of that dementia-friendly community is we have to give people the opportunity in those early stages to be active, to remain active, and also make plans, because people can live 10, 12, up to 20 years with this disease, and we need to have some opportunity, they need to have some opportunity to make plans for those middle and later stages of dementia now, while they still have that ability, you know, to decide what they want the end stages of their life to look like and what kind of care they want in those late stages of their disease. So,
well, do you find that when
Doug, we've got
we got to move on, yeah. But we'd be happy to talk or visit with you afterwards. So I say, and I have a couple of these brochures. We're going to leave them here, and I think Patty and I are going to stay around. We'd be willing to talk, but if you know anyone who needs help, needs assistance, they can contact Missoula Aging Services, and they will give you some information, put you in touch with someone who can talk and who can visit with you. There are volunteers that are willing to talk to caregivers and people with dementia. So, thank you.
Yeah, I hate to be the bad guy, but I'm the moderator, and I'm trying to keep it to schedule so we get out of here by 9. So, next thing on the agenda is neighborhood project funds, and Jeff Stevens is going to be talking about the conclusions from the committee.
do the?
Yeah.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jeff Stevens, and I'm here to give you the results of the 2018 Neighborhood Project Funds selection process. The selection committee met on Monday and took a drive around, looked at a number of the sites that had applied for grants. And on Tuesday, we met and ranked and made recommendations, and in doing so, we also reviewed recommendations from the Missoula Parks and Recreation and City Engineering. This year, there were 12 grants received, requesting a total of $34,829, and we had a total of $18,000 available. The committee's recommendations are to fund the top 6 grant applications and allocate $17,627 to large grants and $2,373 to small grants. The selections are as follows. The 44 Ranch Park Playground, they requested $3,000, and $3,000 were funded. This is to build a playground structure aimed at children ages 2 to 5. The next grant that was funded was the Franklin School Playground and Garden. This was to build out the Franklin School outdoor garden. They requested $3,000, and $3,000 was funded. The next request, this is another shot of that Franklin School project location. Next request was the Heart of Missoula traffic signal box art. We don't have any pictures of the traffic signal boxes, but we did get a request for $3,000, and we funded $3,000. Next request was the Bellevue Park snake ladder for the soon-to-be-installed Bike Skills Park. We received a request of $3,000, and we funded $3,000. Next request was the Community Garden Solar Dehydrators. The request was to build 2 solar dehydrators for River Road and Northside Community Gardens. We received a request for $3,000, and we refunded $2,627. 337 of this was denied as long-term maintenance and was not funded. And the next request was the Syringa Bike Skills Park. That was to build a progressive bike skills park, workstation with tools, shelter, and restroom and trails. We received a request for $3,000, and we funded $3,000. These requests are an action item tonight, and we're going to open this to discussion and questions, and we'll need a motion from the floor if we're going to adopt this.
Yes, if I could reiterate that for you, Jeff. So these are the recommendations from the committee for the grants to be funded. So there were 12 grants, of which we were able to have enough money to fund 6, and this is in a progressively descending order of scoring on the grants. Let's see, what else was it? So this is a recommendation from the committee. So now it's up to you as community forum to either pass on this recommendation with a vote that you're in favor of it, and then it will go on to, let's see, where's it go next, John? City Council? No, it goes to...
Yeah, it goes to the City Council once you approve it.
I move that we approve these recommendations from the Grants Committee.
Doug Graham, I second.
Okay, before we vote, we need to allow public comment. So if there's anybody in the public who'd like to make a comment. Sorry, I don't have my mic on. Would like to make a comment on these recommendations. You are free to do that. please keep to 3 minutes. Okay, I think we can move on. Is there any discussion from the community forum team? All right, then I think it's time for a vote. So all those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the motion passes. Thank you very much. Okay, the next item on the agenda is a request for reallocated funds, and Jane's going to present that.
This is a request on behalf of Community Forum, and this request went before the Community Forum leadership team, who supported it and put it on the agenda. So we presently have a little over $9,000 in reallocated funds, and this is a request for $1,750. This will complete all expenditures needed through up to fiscal year 19. And the $750 request will be, hold on, it will be for training for Karen. There presently is no funds for training for her. It will supplement my yearly training where I go to the NeighborWorks Training Institute. And there's also money in there for tabling throughout the year and miscellaneous things like if we need maps or supplies for meetings or something like that. So it's $1,750, and it will leave us with a remaining balance of $7,393 in reallocated funds. Questions?
So I think we could entertain a motion from the floor.
Doug Grimm, I move that we accept.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, Bob seconds. Any questions or discussion? Wow, okay. Doug, maybe I should have given you a little time. Looks like we might be moving ahead of schedule. All right, so then a vote on the motion on the floor to accept this recommendation. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, unanimous. All right. So Jane, we're rolling, as was supposed to be at 8:14, the staff report, so we're running about 6 minutes ahead? Wow.
And you know how long-winded I am. Okay, what we have coming up, I want to give everybody ample time. You can access this online, or you can access it right now. I'm going to pass it around. It's the 14th Annual Outstanding Neighborhood Volunteer of the Year Award. We have 2 awards. One is a group award, and one is an individual award. It started in 2004 with Don Stinger, and it went through 2016, Karen Sippy. The outstanding, I hope you nominate somebody because there are a lot of wonderful people who do wonderful things in our community who aren't recognized. So it would be very nice if you would nominate someone. Like, for instance, last year, Karen Sippy received the award. She came to City Council where the mayor did a proclamation, and he named it Karen Sippy Day. And she had a tree planted in her honor, and it was Neighborhood Volunteer Month. She has her name, as all of the other recipients do, on a plaque in City Hall outside my office. So I encourage you to nominate someone that you know. I know you know some great people in your neighborhood, and that would be great. I'll just pass this around, so it's from the website, so you can look at who had received it in the past. The other thing I'm very, very proud about is, well, I'm very proud of Karen here, who made this fabulous brochure, which we just ordered and got 1,000 of, and I'm going to pass them around to everybody. They're a little larger. This way you can see the map better, and I think she did an outstanding job. Good job, Karen. Thank you. And let's see, next month, Next month, as this month, Community Forum meets the third Thursday of the month. And by tradition, Bob Martin will be moderating it for a 5-minute meeting. And then we will have pizza, and we ask everybody, all Community Forum leadership team members and also neighborhood council members plus a guest to please come. We'll have pizza and drinks. Bring something to share if you would like, but the best part is the White Elephant gift exchange that we have. So bring something left over that from last year's Christmas you didn't want, or something unusual or funny, something we can have some fun with. We always have a lot of fun with that. And so we'll be sending out reminders about that to you. So I hope to see you all here. We always have a good time. Thank you. Any questions?
Kathleen Gaymar, my question is, where will the party be? Right here, in this room?
Yes, it's always in this room, but we won't have MCAT here, so you can get a little wild if you'd like.
Thank you.
And not only do we thank Karen for the development of that brochure, but you're about to give us a presentation, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
So I'm happy to report that the Heart of Missoula has recently received an American Planning Association award as one of 5 great neighborhoods in the nation. And so, our very own neighborhood council representative, Kim Brown Campbell, spoke at an award ceremony that was held on October 6th. The event took place during First Friday, and it was, as you can see, a beautiful evening. Kim is a Heart of Missoula resident and a leadership team member on the Heart of Missoula Neighborhood Council. The event was held at the Missoula Art Park in conjunction with the Missoula Downtown Foundation's Donor Appreciation Party. And Kim spoke about how much she loved the downtown, the events, parades, shops, public art, public market, and she listed many things that make it a special place for her. Then Allison Mock in the center there, the president of the Western Central chapter of the American Planning Association, presented the award to Mayor John Engen and Dan Cederberg, who is a member of the Downtown Master Plan Implementation Committee. And here's a short clip from MCAT that they put together for me. They also have a full video of the event on demand. Oops.
Okay, I'll go get the screen. Okay.
Well, I'm here today on behalf of the Downtown Missoula Partnership. I'm on a number of the boards that are represented in the Downtown Missoula Partnership, and I have the perspective of being a downtown employee since 1980 and on the MDA board since 1987. So over those years, I've had a chance to observe the partnerships that were alluded to, and it really has been a pleasure to experience that. And I think, you know, we have the beautiful sky, we have the beautiful mountains, we have the beautiful river, but we also have beautiful people. And it has been those people, both in the private sector and the public sector, who have made this award possible. So I'm humbled and honored to be able to say thank you for all those people for this award.
So this poster was created by Karen Snow with the Missoula Downtown Foundation. The event was held by the American Planning Association Western Central Chapter, the City of Missoula, the Office of Neighborhoods, Missoula Downtown Foundation, and it was sponsored by the Blackfoot Corporation.
We even had Play at Missoula to provide excellent entertainment. And as a side note, this is one of the many city projects that has been received Office of Neighborhood grants.
And the wind was blowing.
And there was food and time to mingle. The Missoula Downtown Foundation had the Silk Road catered event. Brian Van Lossberg spoke a few words. He is a Missoula City Council member for Ward 1, which includes the downtown area and the Heart of Missoula neighborhood. And he currently chairs Council's Park and Conservation Committee and is the council representative on the downtown plan implementation team. Anders Brooker also spoke. He is the owner of Runner's Edge, a specialty running store that opened its doors in downtown Missoula in 2001. He lives in the East Pine Street Historic District and is currently serving as the board president of the Missoula Downtown Association. So for a little background, the APA kicked off its National Community Planning Month of October by honoring 15 places that celebrate stories of exemplary planning that has resulted in stronger, healthier, and more just communities. And there were 5 great neighborhoods, 5 great streets, and 5 great public spaces. And we can take a quick look at the Heart of Missoula. This is the APA's website, and this is the section for the Heart of Missoula. It talks about the planning, some characteristics and features, some numbers, describes the area some more, and then provides some extra resources. And each community has a page like this that was received an award. So the American Planning Association is an independent, not-for-profit educational organization that provides leadership in the development of vital communities. This is the APA's 10th anniversary recognizing great places in America, and each year the APA recognizes unique and exemplary streets, neighborhoods, and public spaces. The chosen places have been shaped by forward-thinking planning that showcases affordable transportation options, promotes community involvement and accessibility, and fosters economic opportunity. So what is the criteria for being recognized as a great neighborhood? The neighborhood can be based on a specific plan or the result of a more organic process. Neighborhoods of different kinds are eligible: downtown, urban, suburban, town, small village, but all should have a definable sense of boundary. The APA has selection guidelines: functionality, multimodal transportation, design, quality of life and community participation, sustainability, and character are all taken into account. These guidelines are considered in addition to other important factors such as geography, population, demographics, planning involvement, sustainable building and setting, urban, suburban, or rural. And so why the Heart of Missoula? As Laval Means said, is she still here? It's the people, the places, and the partnerships that make the Heart of Missoula the thriving, vibrant center of the city. And we don't know who nominated the Heart of Missoula, but we were very honored to have been. And many things came together to enhance the nominations. It's a hub of culture, it's natural setting, substantial reinvestment that's been made, successful partnerships, thriving historic districts, the close-knit fabric of housing, commerce and public facilities, investment in parking, the walkable street grid, and multiple annual events. So briefly, the two other categories that the APA recognizes each year is public spaces, as you can see there, the list of plazas, town squares, parks, marketplaces, public commons, and malls, and all of these others. And then the other is public streets. And those are listed as the entire three-dimensional visual corridor, including the public realm and how it relates to the adjacent land uses. So I would just encourage you to visit the APA website. Go to it real quick here. You can explore and see what other places received awards this year. This is all of them there. And you can also see the previous designees as well. Any questions?
Karen, is there a link on the, in the neighborhood area or within the city website that can get us there? Or?
Yes, on the Heart of Missoula
Okay.
webpage within our office's page, you can find more information there. And I will include it in the minutes as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Karen. I was glad that we got to hear that. I know I missed it last month because we went over, so I didn't want that happening again, so thank you. So, the fun part of the evening. What is going on in your neighborhood? And given the time, let's keep it to about 3 minutes.
The Upper Rattlesnake Neighborhood Council leadership team plans on having a meeting in February. Thank you.
Okay, Katie Sullivan, University District. We had a general meeting last month, and we did a priorities activity to determine our neighborhood priorities. And our top priorities are urban deer, traffic calming and speeding issues, construction, dog waste, code compliance, trash in the alleys, and mandatory safety and health inspections. If you're interested to learn more, just let me know. Thank you.
Ron Larson, Grant Creek. We have scheduled a general neighborhood meeting December 12th at 7 o'clock at the Grant Creek Inn. And we've a couple agenda items. Shane Stack from the Missoula Department of Transportation will be there to discuss some issues we have on North Reserve. And I'm sure we'll be talking about a little bit about our intersection there at Grant Creek and the interstate. And also, the newly appointed city council member Mirtha Becara and re-elected council member Jordan Hess will be there to join us in our meeting. So it should be pretty interesting because of the issues that you mentioned earlier about traffic in Missoula. And so we're quite concerned. So thank you.
Tim Karst with the Muskangawi leadership team. I'm new to the position here. We have not had a leadership team since our general meeting back in September, and we will probably get one scheduled soon. I'll have something to report then.
Chris Chitty with Franklin LaForte. We have scheduled a general meeting for January 23rd at Franklin Elementary School. Don't exactly know what we're going to talk about yet, but I'm sure it will be scintillating. We also, there's a meeting that happened tonight as well about the Montana Rail Link Park that's down at South Ave. they've got a concept, and it looks pretty great, and they're trying to get started in the spring.
Kathleen Gamar from Rose Park Neighborhood Leadership Team meeting. We had it last evening. We had a visitor by the name of Officer Ethan Smith, and he came and talked to us about Neighborhood Watch, and we are going to be getting involved with that. We also reviewed again the St. Joseph's Playground, and the signs are now up, and everything is functioning nicely with that. We talked about traffic calming, and that's still kind of on hold, but we're in hopes to be getting some of that done on Cleveland and Crosby soon. But they are also redoing Willard School, so we decided that we're not going to really push too hard because there's a lot of activity with construction over there at this time. The only new business we had was we reviewed our bylaws, and gentleman, Mike Painter, has been working on those, and he gave us a copy of that. And then we talked about the party, and also about the individual and group award nomination forms. And I agree, I think it would really be neat for us to nominate somebody for that from one of our groups. Thank you.
My name is Pamela Frazier from Heart of Missoula, and I'm just really a substitute tonight. I really can't tell you too much more about what's going on with Heart of Missoula, but I'll get right on my emails there, and I'm sure something new will come up. Thanks for letting me sit in tonight.
Jeff Stevens, South 39th Street Neighborhood Council, which is Missoula's most perfect neighborhood. As a result, I have nothing to report. Thank you.
I'm Teresa Connor, and I'm with Lewis and Clark District. And we had our first meeting October 6th, our second one November 6th, and our three top priorities were lack of painted crosswalks on Bancroft Street, and our duck pond maintenance. There's Bancroft Pond there. We're really looking at that to do some interesting things with it. And speeding on Bancroft from about 7:30 in the morning until about 9 o'clock. And then the same thing repeats in the afternoon. So it's getting kind of heavy traffic and stuff there. So we had a nice gentleman by the name of Ben Weiss come talk to us about painting crosswalks and calming circles. And then the neighborhood council agreed to work with the Missoula Bicycle Pedestrian Program, which Ben represents, and do a study. The other thing, like I said, we have our duck pond, and we're working on some plans with that, talking to Fish, Wildlife and Parks, Ducks Unlimited, things like that, to see what we can do to make it more friendly to the neighborhood children that come there and from school and stuff, and the people that frequent the park all the time. So that's pretty much it. We have a new board, and we have Colleen coming back, Dave Westfall, who's over there, and Jean Peterson, Jerry Derenberger, and myself. So that's it, but you'll be hearing more.
Okay, so Farview's Patty Canyon, we're working towards a meeting in early January. I think we've got sort of two exciting things that just like to have you all be aware of. One is that I think we're finally getting to a place where something will happen in a good way for the Forest Service building that's been in Whitaker Park for a long time. It's deteriorating, but yet it has an incredible history. It was the only thing on the hill. It was the radio transmitter facility for all of the Forest Service operations in this entire area. There's a real interest in sort of maintaining its historical perspective, and yet we know if it stays in the park, it's probably going to just deteriorate until it becomes liability for everybody. So we're hoping that it'll be able to be moved. And then we can, for the park itself, there can be a shelter. The other piece is that in the park master plan that we have for the area, there was a second park that had been designated as a potential recreation area. And it's come to pass, as some of you heard last month, that Missoula Water is thinking about the way they're going to change some of the facilities that they have. And one of the particular park that we're thinking about is Ninkpata, which has 3 water company tanks in it, and yet they're not going to be used in the future. So this would really expand the ability of this park to become developed. And so we're moving towards that. And I think don't have buy-in from the community yet because we haven't presented it, but I just want to let you know about it.
Nick Shons, River Road. We welcomed our new members and kind of talked about the structure of our meetings. We debriefed on our summer barbecue and sort of talked about what to do in the future. We talked about the Coke plant is relocating, so they'll be really leaving our neighborhood and just sort of talking about what our neighborhood would maybe want to see that space look like in the future and how we can sort of affect that change. We are planning to plan a meeting with our new city council rep, Julie Merritt, and our next leadership meeting is on December 7th.
Anthony Joe, reporting for Captain John Mullen. First, I'd like to thank Community Forum for voting on that large grant proposal. 44 Ranch was I guess, the first one on there, thanks to Sienna and Liana's efforts on that proposal. So, that big feature that you guys already saw, that's, worth about $40,000, and we're hoping to raise more money, and, the large grant proposal is going to help for that, to put in another $40,000 worth more playground equipment for finishing out that whole playground. And our next leadership meeting, I think we're either deciding it's going to be next Tuesday or the Tuesday after that. I think it's going to be next Tuesday. So that's all we have.
Hi, I'm Jim Whitney with Riverfront, and we just had a meeting last Monday, and a few of the things that we're working on right now are reviewing and updating our bylaws. We're also working on a brownfields assessment grant and looking into how we can improve traffic flow on California Street. And then another item is exploring what it takes to get a traffic signal installed at Craig Lane and Orange Street.
Bob Martin, Southgate Triangle. Our last meeting was November 8th. And at that meeting, we elected leadership team members for the next couple of years. And our next meeting will be December 13th at the Southgate Mall at 7 o'clock in the community room. What's been going on in our neighborhood is we've been feverishly working on Bellevue Park for the last year and a half or 2 years, and I want to thank everybody for voting for our bike park feature that we just voted in as on the grants committee, just approved, and everybody here voted for. Last weekend we had a water main blow up on Grant Street, so let's hope that the water company can find resources to replace the water main on Grant Street, just north of the Southgate Mall. The whole street was flooded, and from what we found out last month, they're feverishly working on replacing some of those old water mains, and this should be a warning sign for other neighborhoods that have older single what was it, wartime pipe, I think, that they used in the wars, World War II or whatever, that Missoula got a whole ton of and used it for water lines. So let's hope they can get a bunch of those replaced before because it made quite a mess of the street. The Southgate Mall is moving along. If anybody has noticed, I'm sure you have. You drive down that way, the new theater's nearing completion, and the new Les Schwab tire store on Russell Street is they're hoping to be in by the middle of January into that. So those are the new things happening in the mall. And apparently Tower Pizza is going to be renovated, the old Tower Pizza, in the near future with a URD grant. So there'll be some changes. There's also a huge car wash going in down by the Missoula Credit Union and First Interstate Bank. As I understand it, it's supposed to have 25 vacuum cleaners and a car wash, a huge car wash and lots of parking. So we'll see what happens, but they're working on that also. So there's a lot going on in URD 3 and along the Brook Street corridor. And that's about it.
Jack Walton, Miller Creek. We haven't had a meeting since our annual meeting in August, but there's some things going on in our neighborhood. The Homeowners Association, Upper Linda Vista Homeowners Association, is pretty active, and I attend as a resource to the board of directors, and anyway, they have another person that kind of a special events project type person, and he has identified some issues up in that area and wants to bring them to our neighborhood council, so we'll be addressing those. And one is the city has agreement with the county to do sanding on the Upper Miller Creek Road from the roundabout to Linda Vista Boulevard. And they put the sand down and they snow plow, but they don't pick up the sand. And so all the sand ends up on the sidewalk from the traffic and everything. And then also clean up of some of the parks. So we'll be addressing those issues. Under Upper Linda Vista Supplement number 15, that was approved by the city about 2 years ago, and currently we have 21 of the 41 lots have been built on or are being built on. And then the Teton edition of the Maloney Ranch, there's 47 lots there, and the last time I checked, which was about 2 weeks ago, there was 8 new homes going up in that subdivision. And then the next supplement of Linda Vista, supplement 16, they're working on the construction of the lower part of Shaver Drive to tie into Lower Miller Creek, and also a couple other side streets. And then the thing we found out, neighborhood wrote a letter to the city to see if we could get exemptions on Shaver Drive and Christian Drive and go with the Sherrills, like what the city approved for Lower Linda Vista Boulevard. And that was denied because those are in future developments. They're under construction right now. And so Shaver Drive is going to be probably 42 feet wide, so it'll be a wide boulevard, the lower part, and Christian's fairly wide too, so there'll be bike lanes on the lower part of those two driveways. streets, so. And then the city and Lloyd Dwight entered into an agreement for Jeffrey Park. Jeffrey Park originally was 5 acres, and there was 3 acres that was supposed to be developed for like commercial or something. But Dwight donated that to the city, and so now there's an 8-acre park up there. They completed the topsoil, the sprinkler system, and not sod, but did planting of grass, and they planted 24 trees. And so people are using the park now. There's still some money left over in the city's budget, about $15,000. The money didn't go as far as they expected, so I know we have some people that are interested in seeing if we can't come up with a champion to spearhead a fundraising campaign for Jeffrey Park to finish off some of the amenities that neighborhood would like. Thank you, that's my report.
Okay. Catherine Auger, Lower Rattlesnake. We have not met in quite some time, but we have had some conversations via email regarding our neighborhood being in a bear buffer zone, and Republic Services has started really reinforcing the requirement to have a bear-friendly trash can, and I know a lot of people got cited for that. And so one of our neighbors who's not on the leadership team, she is going to kind of spearhead an effort to work with all of the neighborhoods in the bear buffer zone to see if we can maybe alter some of our collection times, just because we're really early first thing in the morning, which means people typically put their trash out at night. So maybe if we could get times later in the day, we could put it out first thing in the morning when the bears are all asleep. So that is one effort taking place. And secondly, we have a Lower and Upper Rattlesnake Transportation Committee, and they have been meeting pretty frequently. Some of the topics that they are focusing on are trying to complete the connectivity from really the start of the Rattlesnake all the way up to the trailhead in the recreation area. So there are a lot of great biking and walking trails, but then there are also some significant gaps. So they're trying to address those so that bikers and walkers can feel comfortable traveling all the way, since everyone in the city recreates there. And so they're working with Parks and Recreation on that. They have also been involved in just continue to look at the plans for the Broadway Van Buren intersection that will be transforming into 2 roundabouts, and just some safety concerns for all modes using that facility, so bikers and walkers in addition to driving. So they're continuing to talk to the Montana Department of Transportation to get those concerns heard. And that's all we have. Thanks.
We want to talk to you. Good. This is the last time you're going to talk to me. So.
Yeah, go for it.
Cowboy Flats was approved. That's over in Jeff's area, I think. Right?
It's in Bob's.
Oh, your area, okay. A little mixed up on areas, but anyway. So it got approved, and I liked it because it was actually 5.4 zoning, which is kind of rare that we get that zoning anymore. It's generally just, bang them right together and listen to your neighbor sneeze, so. So you were talking about water mains and water pipes, and that is true, that we got all our pipes right after World War II, that they had all these pipes left over. So they sold it to the cities at a pretty cheap rate, and they're starting to wear out. So we got Territory Landworks. They are looking at different ones. There's one on Railroad Street. There's one in Farviews. There's one a couple other places. Morrison and Marley Consultant has one on Grant and Harvey Street. So they are being looked at. Also, we got a Lincoln Hills, it's got a water utility storage tank that they're starting to design. So for Lincoln Hills in that area. We okayed a subdivision out by, I don't remember what's the school out there on the west side. It was another 5.4 with a T on it. The T means townhouses can be built on it. The neighbors, I thought it was kind of funny because the neighbors actually got up and said that was infill. Well, you know, most of our neighborhoods are, go ahead.
That was Hillgate Elementary, and that was out on Siren Drive where the development
Right,
was.
thank you. So anyway, that, we don't consider that infill in the Lewis and Clark area anyway, because our zoning is 5.4. So I don't know, there's probably some other things that was going on. We also approved, for the Fox site, we approved, so they could keep going on with that. Let's see if I can remember anything else. I guess I can't. So I want to say goodbye to all of you. This will be my last night here.
Thank you.
So, actually, I'm kind of sad to go. I helped start the neighborhood councils years ago, and I'm so proud of that you guys are all here, and there's 20 of you. It's remarkable. Didn't think that ever happened. Thanks, Jane, for your leadership.
And John, we'd like to thank you for your loyal support through the many years to the neighborhood councils, and I think John needs a round of applause.
Hear, hear. You took it away from me. I was going to do that. Thank you.
We will miss you.
Yeah. Yeah, John was the representative up in my area, so I know how much he was working on this.
In the
Yeah.
Lewis and Clark Neighborhood Council. Being that I ran it for 7 or 8 years.
You have to go through my training, you know.
Oh, my God.
Okay.
Wow. So as far as things to go before city council, as far as a report, I really like the idea of telling them about what our neighborhoods are thinking about. So I will go back over this rapidly written down list of things that you all were reporting out right here at the end. And that will probably be a lot of what I report. I'll certainly tell them that we had the presentations, and probably also important was about the choice of on the funding, just that you all voted for it. And Jane, is there a need to mention about the Anvaya at council?
No, not really, because
Okay.
they won't be nominating anyone. And that's good if you don't have to go into great detail about the grants, because I'll be doing that in A&F and when I go to city council. And so will you be going on Monday? I think it's the 27th.
27th, you head down, yeah, you've got the 20th down here.
20th, I'm sorry. Thank you. The 20th. Will you be able to go?
I guess I'll have to.
Okay,
Is
we'll
the
get
date
you on the
wrong?
agenda.
All right, and Bob, you're the next moderator, but is it the 20th? I think that's not right. I think it's the 21st. 21st. All right. 21st. Okay. Mr. Grimm?
Usually I sit here and look at about 3 times as many books sitting here because people haven't come in. And I think we have 16 people who, I think that must be a record. So I think it's all due to the hard work of Karen and Jane Kelly. And I want to say congratulations. I think in my as far as I can see, we've set a record today, 16 people.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thanks.
With that, the meeting is adjourned, and say thanks to people as you go by.
Don't forget to come to the party next month.